Hey there, scrappers, recyclers, and investors. Welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where every week we talk about things that are going on in the industrial metals market, the precious metals market, as they relate to our scrapping world and in our investments. Plus, we have a safety tip for the week, and then we talk about, well, whatever other miscellaneous things come up that need to be discussed. It is great to be here with everyone. We had a beautiful snowstorm yesterday. Nice snow coming down. It blew around some, but not like, big drifty kind of stuff. It was cold enough that the snow was rather dry. So it didn't take down a bunch of limbs. So we didn't lose power. We didn't lose internet connectivity. So, all in all, a beautiful winter snowstorm for us, anyway, here in the mountains of Western North Carolina. Depending upon where you were around here, you got anywhere from 4 to 8 inches. But folks on the other side of the state got hammered and had blizzard conditions. And then, of course, some of the eastern seaboard did as well. So, just an interesting weather week, and that's going to have a big play into our safety topic. All right, well, let's see who has joined us so far. We've got Roger at CU Scrapping in the house. Richard is with us. Mike's Meltdown. JR Cat is in the house. Uh, Must be a keyboard issue going on here because Roger has a keyboard issue going on. So yeah, there's some keyboard issues going on. JR Cat is in. Did I say hello, JR Cat? I don't remember. Electronic Scrappers in the house. Andy Patadou is with us. Welcome, Sister G. 1, 2, 3. How you doing? Great to have you here. Scrapping on the Fly is with us. Great to have y'all in the house. I tell you what, beautiful, beautiful. I wasn't thinking it was quite so beautiful when I was out shoveling here yesterday and today, but the dog's got to get out and do her thing, so got to keep at least the pathway clear, right? All right. Well, we've got a lot to talk about with gold and silver. So, what do you say we get right into it here? We are first looking at the AppMex website for gold. Again, I want to emphasize that I am not sponsored by AppMex. I do not get any sort of remuneration, sponsorship, any of that kind of stuff. They're just one of the sites that I have used to buy and sell my physical gold and silver. I always recommend that you have physical gold and silver in your portfolio. I do not recommend that you have paper gold and silver. Why? Because it's not worth the paper it's written on. But the physical gold and silver that you hold in your hands, you can do stuff with if you need to. All right, so here's the 1 week chart for gold, and we can see that there was a slight climb and then a little more climb, and then we kind of climbed up to this plateau, and then we crash. And we try to recover, and then we crash. All right, so what was going on here with this crash? We're going to talk about that when we get over to the trading economics side. Um, the most important thing that I want to say right now is don't panic. Okay, don't panic. This is to be expected. So if you were holding some gold bearing material back and you were thinking, oh my God, I just lost all this money, just relax. We'll explain why here. All is not lost. If we take a look at it from a 1 month perspective, well, it smooths it out a little bit, but you can see we had this nice climb through the month, and then boom, there's what it looks like smoothed out, dropping. And we're going to go right over here to the 1 year, and we had a bit of variability in this year, but you can see where we climbed out here, and then we dropped right there, and we got more slow kind of it. If you look at this signal, you've got this growth, and then you've got um, churn going on around that growth. Again, that's pretty normal. And it's funny because when you look at the 1 year signal, you just barely see where it dropped off here at the end. But let's now get over to the trading economics site. And when we look at the trading economics site, things become a little bit clearer because the way this line draws out, this is 1 year. And in a minute, I'm going to pull up the candlestick so we can take a look at how ugly that was for folks. But here we see the drop off. Gold tumbled more than 8% to 4,900 per ounce on Friday as profit taking triggered a broader pullback across precious metals. You will actually see that this played out across most of the metals. The decline followed a sharp rally. So, we were all looking at those prices going up and up and up. That pushed the bullion to record 5,608 on Thursday, leaving prices still on track for a sixth consecutive monthly advance and the strongest performance since the 1980s. So, yeah, even though we had this pullback, we're still doing really well, right? Now, as fueled by heightened economic and geopolitical uncertainty, that's what was driving these prices all the way up. And in truth, those circumstances still exist alongside perceived U.S. dollar weakness. Sustained U.S. dollar weakness. All of those things are still playing around here, but there might be some things that are, going to give us a little bit of easing on this. Primarily, that Trump has nominated former Fed Governor Kevin Warsh as the next Fed chair. Plus, we had some sense of strengthening in the dollar. So those two factors were contributing to investors saying, all right, maybe this is a good time for me to take some money off the table, because a couple of the big concerns were starting to settle out. They knew that prices might come down as a result. So a bunch of investors decided to take some money off the table, profit taking, prices start to come down, and it sort of snowballs for a while. It kind of speeds up, and you have this perceived crash here as the prices came down really fast. Let's take a look at the candlestick charts here. Boom. And each candlestick is going to represent 1 day of trading. I'm going to zoom in on this part of the chart. So we open this up, and we can see that we had from January 16, we're climbing, 17th, 20th, we're going up, 21, we're going up, 22, we're going up, 23, we're going up, 27, 28, and then we have this kind of, hey, wait a minute, what's going on right here on the 29th? Now, it's not quite a doji. A doji is more like what you see here, where the candlestick is really, really tiny, but it's really close with these big, long wicks up and down, and then we crash. And so you see that the market opened here, it closed down here, and the maximum and the minimum of the day were, kind of broader as well. So a rough day on the gold market there. A lot of selling, a lot of profit taking going on. So these candlesticks tell a very interesting story, and there are a number of investors who actually trade based on the candlestick interpretations. So that's a whole nother theory of investing. I'm not going to get into it, but it is interesting to look at it sometimes from that perspective. All right, let's get back to the line chart here, and we're looking at the full year again. Now, just to get this in perspective here, let's take a look at the entire gold market, and you can see that we're still in record territory. This correction is not getting us anywhere back down to a panic, level. So we can calm down a little bit. we're doing fine, and some of those fundamentals that were driving the prices are still out there. So this correction is probably going to turn itself around. With that in mind, let's take a look at the forecast. And yeah, you can see that the experts anyway, the people that do the forecasting for a living, they're looking at this recovery here. Let me get an arrow going here. So they're looking for a nice recovery from gold, getting back up again, even going above where we were. So that to me is I'm not worried about this signal. If I was still actively, doing my business and preparing material for sending off to Board Sword or Didion or any of my other buyers, I wouldn't be panicking trying to get stuff out the door. I would just like, yeah, okay, we'll keep moving the way we're moving. We're doing fine here. We can see that the long-term forecast for the next 12 months is 5,209 and some change. So, that's not bad. We're doing fine here. I think the most important thing is don't panic. We're not in anywhere near panic world at this point. The factors that are driving gold prices up are numerous, and okay, some of them led to investors taking some money off the table, but a bunch of them are still in play, and that's going to keep the prices moving up. All right, let us now get over to silver. So we're going to go back to APMEX. We're going to hit silver. And we're going to go back to the 1 week. And you can see here on the 1 week chart for silver, it had kind of flattened out. I mean, there's a lot of churn in this signal, but this was a slow rise, but depending upon how you want to draw this arrow, this was almost a big part of a plateau here for the early part of the week. A very slow rise with quite a bit of churn overlying it, of course. And then at the end of the week, we have the price drop off fast. Now, I have to admit that I contributed to this in a sense by pure happenstance. And this has nothing to do with me being a brilliant investor or any of that kind of stuff. I just decided as I was looking at the week playing out and with, my surgery coming up and stuff, I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and sell some silver off this week because I thought it would be interesting. I've had a number of people who were saying they weren't able to sell their silver. People weren't buying silver. So I wanted to see if I could, in fact, sell some silver. So I sold some silver to APMEX. They had a minimum amount that they were willing to buy. So you had to present, in my case, 220 ounces to get their minimum that they were interested in. And they gave me a pretty good price at a little over $92 an ounce. So I sold into this, and I perhaps unwittingly contributed to this market crash by being one of those people that decided to take some profits off the table. But here's something that I think is really interesting that I want to point out because we talked about this last week. Let's go down here to the gold to silver ratio. Let's look at the week. We got to go for the month. All right, so we're going to look at the gold to silver ratio for the month. And at one point, we were down here at 44. So that's it. You could trade 44 ounces of silver and get an ounce of gold. Last week, we were talking about, hey, if you've got it, maybe it's something worth doing. If you were good trying to get some gold, but you didn't really want to throw that much cash at gold, then the argument was, well, maybe you can trade some silver. If you did, in fact, trade some silver and you were able to trade, say, 40-ish ounces of silver for an ounce of gold, well, now with the gold to silver ratio having gone up to 60, you could trade that ounce of gold and get 60 ounces of silver. So you would have increased your holdings by around 20 ounces of silver. That's how the gold to silver ratio works. And we're seeing in real time how people can use this gold to silver ratio. And there are a lot of traders out there that's exactly what they do. They trade on the gold to silver ratio. Now, I know it doesn't seem like that's a huge deal, 20 ounces of silver, but if you rinse and repeat this process uh, numerous times, you're doing really well. You're coming out on top. And depending upon where you're located and how the transaction is handled, it might not be a taxable reporting item. I'm not a tax CPA, I'm not an accountant or a lawyer. I cannot provide any tax advice, but it's something that you want to think about. All right, well, let's get over to the trading economics site and take a look at silver. So here's this crash that we saw. We're going to see very similar language in this summary. Silver plunged 25% towards 84 an ounce, might even be getting down low, down to 79 as things continue here, as aggressive profit taking triggered a broader retreat across the precious metals. And you're going to see when we talk about other metals, all of the metals. The white metal had surged to a record 122 on Thursday. And despite the sharp correction, it remained on track for a monthly gain of more than 30%, underpinned by heightened economic and geopolitical uncertainty, a weaker US dollar, and tight physical market conditions fueled by record investment inflows and strong industrial demand. Now, we've talked about this before, but just as a reminder, silver, unlike gold, has a pretty heavy industrial demand signal. Gold still has some industrial demand. Silver has a lot more industrial demand than gold. And so, in addition to the investment demands for silver, you have industrial demands that will ensure that the metal keeps moving. So you've got those factors that play into silver in a way that they don't necessarily affect gold. Now, the geopolitical risk stayed elevated after President Trump signed an executive order imposing tariffs on goods from countries supplying oil to Cuba. So you've still got the geopolitical turmoil going on, and that is going to continue to, as we discussed with gold, keep the arguments in there for gold and silver prices recovering and going back up again. And again, they talk about Fed Governor Kevin Warsh being nominated. The sources that I've read say that he's a pretty good pick. I don't really know anything more than what I've read during the week, and it suggests that the independence of the Fed from the executive branch will remain in place, which was a major concern for investors. So apparently, this Kevin Warsh is one of those folks that is believed would keep the independence in place, and that's a good thing for all of us. So, if you were able to play that gold to silver ratio game, you probably did okay. You're in a position now to take advantage of it again on the other direction. But you got a chance to see the gold to silver. Silver prices are dropping. Again, this is no time to panic, right? This is a correction. It will most likely turn around again. And there we see a nice upward price trend again. So here's the price go. Whoa, that's a big arrow. We don't need a big fat arrow. Let's get a little skinny arrow like this so we can see that the prices are going to be moving right back up again. Yeah, we might not get back into that record territory again, but hey, we're in record territory. I mean, look at this here. Let's go through all the way back through the entire history that they show for silver. You got this spike here, you got another spike here, and now we got this spike, and we're going to climb back up even more. So we're doing really well. Prices are good, good for silver here. All righty. Let's see. I want to go here. Then I want to go. Yep, we're still there. All right. Let's see what kind of comments you all have had about silver. I'm going to leave this chart up while we check in with some folks and some comments. Trying to figure out where I was in the. All right, Dr. A006, hello, no snow in Utah. Plain Scrapper joined us. Welcome, great to have you both here. E-Waste Mike has joined us. Very nice, Mike. Glad to have you here. Yes, I did survive. Of course, I've got surgery this week, so you don't know, man. You might still get your wish. Yeah, Roger. We knew it was going to happen sooner or later. So again, it's just some profit taking. It's it was going to happen. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, dish TVs are always interesting, fun things to scrap. And if you get the antennas too, they might be aluminum depending upon their age, not your age, their age. So there's a lot of interesting stuff with the dish systems. Richard's got the comment here. You only lose if you sell. Yeah, I mean this is a very good point. And Richard is doing his own recovery, so he added some more. Now, the flip side of that argument, you only lose if you sell, is, well, you only really turn it into cash if you sell. Now, there is the argument that you can barter silver and gold if necessary. But one of the things that I always caution people to think about is if you're accumulating silver and or gold, what are you going to do with it? At some point, it's only valuable if you turn it into a currency that you can exchange for things you want or need. So it doesn't really do you a whole lot of good to have a huge stack of silver and or gold if you're just sitting on it and you don't ever use it to do something. Now, if your plan is to turn it over to your children or your grandchildren, that's great. That's not that's a plan, and there's nothing wrong with that plan at all. I just like to suggest to people that they know what their plan is, understand what you want to do with it. In my case, the reason why I actually sold some of my silver last week was twofold. There was the issue of people saying they couldn't sell their silver. So because I hadn't tried to sell any silver, I could not speak to that from experience. So I wanted to get out there and try to sell some silver. And what I learned was, yes, you could sell it, but most people who were willing to buy it wanted some pretty large amounts of it, pretty good quantity of it to make it something they were worth taking that risk on. So, but the other thing was I was looking at the prices and I was saying, well, at these prices, I don't have to sell too much of my silver and I will have completely paid for everything in my collection. So after my sale last week, pretty much my entire silver stack is now free. It's like it's paid for itself just by selling off some of it. So, there was an aspect of that to it as well. La, 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 la. TJ8244, welcome. Great to have you here. Major paper manipulation on metals on Friday. JP Morgan just happens to cover at the very bottom of the market. Um, yeah, that happens, right? Again, that's one of the reasons that I don't play the paper certificate game. But that's what investors do, right? The big investment houses, they have the ability to move the markets a bit when they play these games. So uh, in our little world, we try to do the best we can. Those folks, yeah, they play for serious money. Richard's carrying on a conversation that we had had a bit of last week during this about fights breaking out in the clubs in San Diego. One thing you can always be guaranteed is that if you mix sailors, Marines, and soldiers and alcohol, there's going to be a fight. Sometimes you don't even need to have alcohol involved, and there's going to be a fight. But it's just those kind of things happen. It's just part of military life. We fight with each other all the time, and then but yet there's no one that I'd rather have watching my back than another sailor, marine, or soldier when we're facing the real bad guys. So scrapping when the fly is saying, I just got to get up off my butt. Get out there, man. Get active. Do what you got to do. Do what you got to do. Make it happen. Um, America's favorite hoarder. Great to have you here. I'll sell mine when I retire. I can't take it with me, can I? Nope. Very good point. Very good point. Um, and when we're in our retirement and we're not earning as much money as we were during our earning years, well, we might need that money for for some of the stuff that we're going to do. So, yep. JR Cat is saying that Samsung just dropped millions of ounces of silver. I did not see that. Thank you for the info. Uh, JD's Recycling, welcome. Great to have you here. I'm glad I sent in 3 boxes of boards a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I wouldn't get too concerned. I wouldn't expect to see prices go down because of this correction. If they do, it might be just a little bit, maybe a little bit, but it's not going to be a major correction in the prices that we're getting for our gold bearing material, our e-scrap. I wouldn't get too terribly concerned. Um, but I guess that's the point. If you do have some that you're holding on to right now and you don't know what to do with it, you might want to wait and let this thing settle out a little bit. But yeah, I'm glad you sold that stuff out and got your cash for it. TJ saying again, watch the market tonight when China opens. That's definitely going to tell part of the story. Yeah, it's always interesting because China is a big player in the world's markets, and so what they do can have a lot of influence on where the market goes. So it's definitely worth paying attention to. um, did somebody we know, Jr., get his butt chewed? Welcome, Irish. Great to have you here, man. Oh man. Yep, that was a big correction for sure. Yeah, it definitely got people's attention. All right. You know what? I'll take that. I will go down in the history books as being the person who called the crash, who not called it, but caused the crash. I got to be in the history books for something, so maybe that might as well be as good as anything, right? Oh man, I wish I had enough silver to cause a crash by selling it. Yeah, so Mike's meltdown here is talking about the premiums or the spread on silver and gold. You know, definitely if you're selling your silver and gold or buying silver and gold, there's a spread, and that spread is going to be a huge issue. Now, if you were fortunate enough to have a dealer, a coin dealer, or somebody like that who was willing to trade rounds for rounds or bars for rounds, and not take it to cash value and back again, you might be able to negotiate inside of the spread. But you always have to watch that spread because that's a huge deal. And the the major players in this live and die by the spread. When I negotiated the price for my silver, the spread was like $10 or $11 in favor of Apex, right? So it turns out that it became my favor because just the way the prices went. But Apex was, they were paying what they thought was fair and reasonable and still within the spread, and they didn't bank on the crash that followed. So that happens, but you definitely got to watch that spread or margins, premiums as you're buying and selling your silver and gold. Yeah, we'll see if it actually turns into a dead cat bounce. For those of you that aren't familiar with the terminology, I'll let you look it up. It's a pretty common phrase in investment terminology. So yeah, JR Cat will be watching for it. Great to see you. Thank you. Good to be seen. Okay, we're going to get to our safety discussion here. A lot of good comments and discussion going on with silver, but we need to get through our safety discussion, and then we need to get into what's going on with copper and aluminum. So let us let's do. Wait a minute, I'm going to do this. And this. Then we're going to do this. Alrighty, so the safety discussion today, of course, is because of all this snow and cold weather, and the there's a couple of aspects to this that are important to think about from a safety perspective. The obvious thing here with this picture is, folks will be getting out there and shoveling their sidewalks and their driveways. And boy, you talk about a great opportunity to hurt yourself. Big snow shovels can carry a lot of snow, which means you're trying to lift a lot of weight, and you can throw out your back, you can sprain, you can twist. There's a lot of damage you can do to yourself when you are shoveling large quantities of snow. So do be very careful. Some folks will use these pushers instead of shovels so they don't have to lift the snow. That works until the snow gets really thick and you can't push it anymore. Of course, folks that live up in northern climes probably have a snow blower that they can crank up and run, and that makes it much easier for them. The important thing is to be careful, take your time, don't overexert yourself with shoveling because, I mean, you can literally give yourself a heart attack in addition to the other physical harm that you can do when you are shoveling snow. Now, the other thing that I want to point out here is with this is you notice that this person has got some, let's do this. You'll notice that this person has some, they've got gloves on to protect their hands. They've got pretty heavy duty foot gear on. They've got, in this case, reflective, but they've got pretty heavy duty clothing going on here. The idea is that if you're going to be out in the cold weather, you want to make sure that you are wearing layers so that if you start to sweat, you can take off one or two layers to keep your temperature under control. And you want to protect the exposed parts of your skin so that you don't necessarily suffer frostbite, hypothermia, those kind of things. So it's really important that you take into account each of those kind of considerations. When we look at the kind of clothing and stuff that we need for cold weather, whether it's a headband and a hat, you can always take your hat off and keep your headband on so your ears stay covered and you don't get frostbite on your ears. You lose a lot of heat through your head and your face, so you want to have something to cover them. You've got gloves. You might even want to layer your gloves so that you are protecting your hands in that sense. Shirt, sweater, jacket, so you're layering, you're covering as well. Even if you are going to be working outside for a while, layer your trousers as well. And then make sure that your foot gear will give you some protection from the cold, but also has good treads for traction, so you won't be slipping and falling. Now, I didn't include these dogs in these images just because I love dogs, which I do, but I did that for a very important point, and that is that animals, especially domesticated cats and dogs, can be injured very easily because they're not used to being out in the snow. Now, maybe your animals, are out in the snow more frequently, and that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But you have to watch out for their paws because their paws can get frostbit, burned, similar to what would happen to us. Yes, their paws are much tougher, and they're designed for them to be out there. But if they're not used to being out in the cold a lot, and it gets really cold, they can be injured. They love to play and drool and get snow all over them, and they can, especially a domestic dog or cat, can suffer some of the similar health problems that we can if they're not used to being out in that kind of weather. Now, there are dogs that really would prefer to be out in that weather, like we see here from Mike about his huskies. You'll be lucky if you can get your huskies in out of the snow. A husky is designed to be in the snow, and short of a husky that's been spoiled rotten as part of a show circuit or something like that, your husky is happier being out in the snow. They know how to, they're genetically predisposed to be able to stay out in the snow. So I wouldn't worry about your huskies. If you have a Samoyed, the same thing. Samoyeds, they know what they're doing in the snow. They know they're built to be in the snow. They love the snow. Golden retrievers will go swimming in the snow. They're just, they're just made for it. So know your dog, know its breed, and pay attention to what it's doing out there. But don't just ignore your animals because if your animal is in the house more than it's out of the house, then you need to pay attention to it and take care of it. Hypothermia for humans, make sure that you understand, the signs of hypothermia where a person gets so cold that they can't rewarm themselves. When your core body temperature drops, it can happen and as high as 40 degrees. So certainly any temperatures below 40 Fahrenheit can lead to hypothermia. And so you want to be careful for that. Hypothermia can be a medical emergency in severe cases. So if you suspect somebody is suffering from hypothermia, if they're unable to control their movements because they're shivering so bad, they're weak, they're disoriented, those kind of things, call 911. You also have frostbite. You don't want to stick frostbite into a really warm water because you're going to make it worse. So be careful with frostbite, and again, seek medical attention for how to properly care for frostbite. So those kind of things are important. Now, the other thing that I want to address when it comes to this cold weather safety concerns are generators. There's two kinds of generators. There's the whole home automatic generator that was probably installed by a certified electrician and wired up so that when it senses that the grid has gone down, it will then take over powering your house, but it will cut out the house from the grid. And then when the grid comes back online, then it will sense that and it will shut down the generator or cut the generator off, then shift over to the grid so that you're not trying to power the grid through your own generator, which can be very dangerous for the people that are out there working on the power lines. If you have your own smaller generator, your gas generator that you get from Lowe's or something like that, you want to be extremely careful on how you connect this to your house. You don't want to just wire it into the house with a dead man plug. You're going to kill somebody. It's a very dangerous thing to do. You can have an electrician install the necessary cutout switch so that when you do connect your generator, you have disconnected the house from the grid. And the way those are designed is you can't connect back to the grid until you shut down the generator or take the generator offline. But some people, they don't want to pay an electrician to do this. They try to jury rig it or get around it themselves, and the result is that a lineman gets killed or something goes wrong at the house because you did an unsafe installation. Now, of course, your other thing that you can do with your generator, you don't have to hook up the whole house to it. Maybe you just connect a heater or your fridge or something like that, depending upon what you're doing with it. But make sure you don't run the generator inside the house. Don't even run it in the garage. You might get away with running it in the garage if you have properly piped an exhaust system, but even that is really risky. So don't run it in the house. Don't run it in the garage. Run it outside and bring the cord in to provide heat inside the house with an electric heater or something of that nature. Run some lights or something, whatever depending upon the size of your generator. Be very, very careful with your generator. And of course, don't ever run some sort of propane heater inside the house because you risk carbon monoxide poisoning, killing yourself, or creating a dangerous situation. I have, when I lived on Cape Cod, we had a situation where we were without power for 3.5 days or so. We didn't have a generator at that time. So between the wood fire in the fireplace and the gas stove, I was able to keep the core temperature of the house from freezing. And I didn't mind running the gas stove because it vented directly out. It had a hood that was able to keep the ventilation going. I even cracked the window a little bit to make sure that ventilation was continuing. So there are things you can do to keep yourself warm, but you need to be very, very careful doing those things. The generator safety is such a big deal that you'll hear it discussed on the news. You'll hear it on the NOAA weather radio. You'll see these warnings over and over about generator safety whenever the cold weather hits. So please be careful with that. All right, let us get back to our discussion of what is going on. Yeah, I'm sure you're joking, but don't do that. Yeah, yeah. I know you're probably just joking. Yeah, Mike, that's an interesting thing that there's a lot of EVs that have that you can that when they design in the charging station for the house, that you have the ability to turn the EV into a battery bank for the house. Yeah, that is really interesting indeed that those capabilities exist. Wood stoves are fantastic. A lot of people have them. They're very, especially these days, they're designed so well anymore for to be able to heat the houses. They're really fantastic to have. Okay, we need to get on to copper. Now, copper did come down a little bit, but we did not see nearly as bad a turnaround with copper as we saw with gold and silver. So here, let's take a look at the 1 week copper here. And so really what we saw with copper was, let me get the arrow going. Oops, arrow, and we don't need a great big fat line. We just need this line. So, we can see that copper was bouncing along. I don't know, where does this line want to line? Where's the median here? The middle of this. Kind of like that, with up and down around that line. Then we had a bit of a surge in copper, a lot of volatility going on here, but then it dropped off again. And so now we're kind of back to this 5.9 area for copper again. So kind of in the mix. I mean, it's kind of in the noise of the volatility that's been going on with copper. But there was some carryover that played into that. In the discussion, we see that copper futures dropped more than 3% to around $6 a pound on Friday, reversing a sharp rally from the previous session amid a broad retreat across the metal complex. So the retreat from silver and gold affected other metals as well, copper in particular. Investors locked in profits from copper, gold, silver, and other metals surged to record levels. And then, the same stuff we talked about, rebounding the dollar, volatility in the markets, those kind of things continue to play in this. But copper in particular is, very different than silver and gold because copper is an industrial metal. Copper is a backbone metal of the electrification of the world. And data centers are just using massive amounts of copper, and copper mines are having some real problems keeping up with the demand. So we're going to continue to see good copper prices. Let's just go right over here and take a look at the signal. I'm just going to take a look at the 25-year signal. We can look at the going back through history signal. Here's all the way back to what are we back here to? 80 something, 89, mid 80ish, and we can see we're in record territory for copper. Copper has always had a lot of volatility going on with the market. We've had this really nice steady climb going on here. So there's really nothing to get terribly concerned about. Yes, copper here. Let's go back to the 1 week signal here, and let's bring up the candlesticks. Yes, copper reacted to some of what went on this week, but those price variations could be as much about what the U.S. administration is threatening in the way of sanctions and tariffs than it is from anything that went on with the silver and gold market. So I really wouldn't get terribly worried about that. Um, if we look at the forecast, we see we've got a nice projected climb for copper. What is that? That's about a 45-degree climb. So we've got a nice steep climb here for copper. Keep selling your copper. Keep some of your copper behind, like we've talked about for the last several months now. Excuse me. And you're going to be doing fine. Hold back some of that number one copper, your bear bright, to take advantage of some future strategic value shift out here. But have a plan for what you're looking for when you're going to sell it. But keep selling your number two and your number three insulated copper wire, your number three copper, your lower grade coppers, because it's really good cash flow, and that way you're playing this potential rise in a good way to keep yourself going for copper. Um, and just keep talking to your yard and figuring out what the prices are, and if your yard manager probably isn't going to give you a lot of details about contracts they have and when they're expiring and when they have to reset and those kind of things. Um, if you work for a yard, you might have the advantage of getting that kind of information. Um, but with these kind of prices continuing to climb like this, secondary copper, the copper that comes from recycling, is going to continue to be extremely valuable. And in our industry, as recyclers and scrappers, we're in a great place to continue to feed this market and do well here. All right, let's get over to aluminum. In order to do that, we got to go here, and then we got to go down all the way down here, and we got to get down here. All right, aluminum. This is a 1-year chart for aluminum, and we can see that we've had this nice climb for aluminum here for quite a while now. So really, yes, there's a lot of volatility in these signals. Of course there is. But overall, that's a nice upward climb. And aluminum has been our cash flow metal of choice in the scrapping and recycling world. They're just like copper. Aluminum is a very necessary metal for electrification and data centers. We need to have it. Here in the US, it's needed in China, it's needed throughout Europe, it's needed in India. I mean, it's needed all over the world for infrastructure. So we should continue to see, and let's check. But I'm betting we're going to see an upward forecast for aluminum, and yeah, not as steep a forecast for as copper, but still a nice forecasted rise for aluminum. So the signal for aluminum is keep selling your aluminum. Secondary aluminum is very important. I think most of you know that aluminum cans can be turned into new aluminum cans often within 30 days of being dumped off at a recycling center. So you absolutely want to keep selling your aluminum, keep that cash flow working. I wouldn't hoard aluminum myself because it's really hard to hoard any great quantity of aluminum. It can be a bit bulky, but it's a little bit tough to hoard aluminum unless you melt it into bars, and then it might be a little bit difficult to sell because a lot of yards don't like to buy bars. So my recommendation is keep selling your aluminum. Treat aluminum as your cash flow metal. Whatever your normal selling quantity is, keep selling it and keep that cash flow that you can use to buy tools, to get other materials that you may want, to take advantage of opportunities that come along. All right, I'm going to leave the aluminum chart up here, and we're going to see what kind of stuff. Solars is in here. Solars, welcome. Been battling with YouTube to be allowed to comment. It wouldn't accept that I was a subscriber. Huh, weird. I don't understand that. I know you are. Anyway, I'm glad that it finally let you in. Welcome. Uh, let's see. Plain scrapper. I was getting 520 for copper, up or down about 10 cents as you went up or down with the grades. Yeah, that makes good sense. I actually saw in my yard because I sold a bunch of stuff as I was shutting down the shark cage. I actually saw that copper prices went up a little bit for us, which out here in the boom six is kind of interesting when they change their prices. Roger says finally got over $5 for his Bear Bright on Friday, 5:05. Very cool, man. Very cool. Yeah, Richard, there is a reason why we have the Darwin Awards. And, I know it sounds cruel, but maybe it's best that sometimes those contributors to the gene pool get fleshed out. Yeah, that's harsh. That is harsh. So it looks like Electronic Scrapper had a little trouble as well coming in. That's interesting. It could have been if it, I'll check and see if there's other folks that are having any difficulties with that. Um, yeah, that may have been a weird YouTube anomaly. My keyboard locked up on me earlier this week, and I diagnosed and fixed it literally 30 seconds before sharp. That's dedication, man. That is dedication. Oh, Roger, he's like, oh, I got to get this thing fixed. I gotta be able to comment, tell him when he's nuts. Uh, Hey, Ed, yeah, we had some good snow, didn't we? Snowed East Tennessee, 28 degrees currently. Yeah, bird chilly. Bird chilly. I mean, when we're getting down to single digits at night, that's cold. That is cold, cold. And it makes it, makes it tough to get stuff cleared because it won't melt and go away. It's just there. Although it was really nice because it was so cold, the snow was pretty light and fluffy, and I literally was able to sweep a lot of it off the back porch instead of shoveling it. The third, ooh, so we are very close. So yeah, the third. What day of the week is that? That is Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday. So tomorrow I have to start some of the stuff that they've got me doing you know, for preparation and all for the surgery. So I am planning on being up and live next. I'm planning on being live. I am planning to have my live stream on Sunday, a week from now. Uh, if things don't work out, then I'll try to let Irish or somebody know. I know that Mike would be really happy. E-waste Mike would be really happy if I didn't go live. But yeah, we're gonna have an interesting week this week because we're also supposed to get more snow this week. So I don't know if they're going to delay my surgery or how that's going to work out. So we'll see. But right now, it's going to be Tuesday. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. It was very nice of you. All right, folks. Well, it has been a fantastic discussion of silver and gold and cold safety and copper and aluminum. If you want to continue to talk about this stuff, then all you have to do is, if you have autoplay enabled, is just stay right where you are because I have set it up for an automatic redirect. So as soon as I end this, you'll be redirected across the pond to Ireland, well, for some of you in Europe, you're not going to go across the pond. You're right there. Anyway, you'll be redirected to Ireland so we can join Scrapping Irish for his live stream. It's always a lot of fun. You never know what's going to happen because his live stream is more of a Q&A based, your comments tend to drive the way the stream works. So let's see how things go over in Ireland. Now, if you do not have autoplay enabled, it's easy. Just when I end this stream, go up to that search bar in YouTube, type in Scrapping Irish. You'll see the link come up for his live stream. One way or another, I look forward to seeing everybody over in Ireland for the next hour. If I don't see you in Ireland, please have a very safe week. If you're in the United States and you've been affected by the winter storm, please be safe and be careful. No matter where you are in the world, please be safe and be careful. And we'll see you all next week.